Hello, and welcome to another episode of the podcast, where we will reassure you that football is fixable. Alright, chaps. How are we?
What was that voice?
That sounded like, it was like those American trailers when a new film's coming out, isn't it?
In a world.
This summer.
Yeah. But it didn't. It just kind of sounded like you were doing a low voice like this. Alright.
Yeah,
it was like husky, it's like,
it
attracts people, doesn't it?
No, it was unsettling.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah, unsettling.
Yeah.
That's a very good way to describe that.
I forgot I'm doing this as a third wheel with you two holding hands the whole way through it.
Just because Dan and I make sense, we just we understand each other because we make sense. We're logical.
You make bromance, is what you do.
Yes.
That's what this is.
We make bromance hard. Yeah.
Right. Well, welcome everyone to our new episode on that note. And it's been quite a funny week. We've had the Champions League, the 7th match week of the league phase.
Champions League.
Yeah, the Champions League. And Man City, I just got to say Arsenal won 3-0. Man City were 2-0 up against PSG in what is quite it was a big clash because I think PSG are struggling a bit as well, to be fair.
Yeah,
they're trying to get into the qualifications and stuff, aren't they? Mm-hmm. Man City 2-0 up, and I switch off. I had it on the radio. Mm-hmm. Switch it back on, and it's 4-2 to PSG, and it's all completely turned around. So capitulation again from Man City.
It really is. Yeah, I suppose at the moment they've got the Man United effect where they feel as though we've turned a corner now, and then
now
this is it.
Yeah, what do you think of that, Dan? Because I remember a couple of weeks ago you were saying, "Oh yeah, I feels like it's a bit different," and then you go and lose against Brighton.
Turned a corner. That's it.
It still feels different.
Does it?
No.
It looks the same, but okay.
Yeah. Amarim's the man, isn't he, I suppose? He's at the wheel, all that kind of thing.
He's only lost 7 times in 10 games. It's,
Yeah, I know. Well, to be fair, that's different. We've never done that before.
That is true.
Oh, yeah, that's very
different. Yeah,
that's a new record, isn't it?
So
anyway, shut up, Dan.
The numbers don't lie, guys.
Be quiet, Dan. So back to Man City. So how do they decide to solve that problem, though, Seth? So they've lost a lot of games.
Well, knowing the way they work in transfers, I imagine they're going to go for loans, maybe do some smart spending so they save money. Look to the future.
This is the thing. I've heard that Pep is a genius. So many people keep telling me that Pep's a genius, right? He's the best manager since sliced bread, or whatever it is.
I didn't know that sliced bread was a very good manager.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, but he's this great thing, right?
Yeah.
So you'd think he'd do those things that you just mentioned, or he'd tactically set the team up differently, or whatever it is. We had our Man City fixes a few weeks back.
Yeah.
But no, they just spent another 150 million in the January transfer window, brought 3 players in.
Yeah,
and that's
3
the way
players
of solving
for 150. I mean, this is exactly what I was talking about with the elitism from last episode.
The entitlement, the elitism.
Yeah. I mean, how many other teams can spend 150 mil?
And that's a problem in the Prem, isn't it? And we're going to get onto this today about that kind of the gap, that privilege that we talked about last week, the elitism, the kind of entitlement. This week, we're going to be looking at how we fix the Prem.
Yeah.
So maybe we need to look at Pepper in a future episode or something and sort of say, is he actually as good a manager as everyone thinks he is?
I don't think we got time for him because, and I don't say this lightly, this is a big one.
This is actually a big one.
It is a big one, yeah.
Today, we're going to fix the Premier League. Well, what's wrong with the Prem first? I suppose we should get, what's the problem with the Premier League?
First, I'd just immediately like to say it's you elitists.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
We've already done this. Yeah. Listen to last week's episode. Fixing entitlement in football. You can't just keep ranting about this.
I can fix entitlement all I want, but that's a lot of it to do with the fans, we were saying. But you guys supporting some of the big 6 teams, just unreachable, unfathomably rich. That's the problem.
That's it, isn't it?
Yeah,
the fact that we call it the
with all the money.
Yeah, the fact that we call it the Big 6.
Yeah.
That shouldn't exist. In a league, don't we want it competitive top to bottom, right? So we shouldn't have a Big 6.
Yeah.
Do you agree, Dan? Even though 2 of our, the clubs we support are 2 of those Big 6, if you like.
Yeah,
I think it's not good for the league, is it?
Well, the Big 6 doesn't really exist anymore, does it? I think there's been a real dilution of it. If you look at where we are, like there's Man United, they're nowhere near a top 6 team. And then you look at how teams like Brighton and Bournemouth and even Forest, these teams, how they've learnt how to run a club in a way that doesn't really require money so much. It just doesn't feel like that Big 6 really exists.
Yeah, kind of. But the thing is, the Big Six, or at the very least, for a while, it was Big Four, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it kind of went
was
3,
the top
4.
and then it became the Big Six, didn't it?
So the Big Six especially, they've maintained a high level for a long period of time. Whereas if you have Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth and stuff, they've done well recently, but it's not necessarily that they've done it consistently over a long period of time. There's been teams like Wolves and stuff that have kind of broken in. Everton at one point broke into
Aston
the top
Villa
4
last season.
Yeah, but it's kind of like a flash moment, isn't it? And then
it's not sustained.
Yeah. So I think with the Big Six, the biggest thing with them is that their spending power has been traditionally so much more than the rest that you can afford to say, like, oh, we need a striker. We'll spend 80 million on a striker. How many teams could do that?
I think that's generally still it, don't you think, Dan? How the kind of, even though United right now might not be in the top 6, even Tottenham. I mean, actually, what places are they? Can I throw this out? It's like 13th and 16th or something.
I was wondering when you were going to bring that up.
I had that in my notes. I had to bring up at some point.
Yes, we are woefully low at the minute. So
yeah. So it's not just league position though. I think that's building on your point there, Seth. I don't think it's just a league position thing. It's the spending, it's the global reach, it's the kind of revenues and stuff, and that's actually kind of systematic to the problem we're going to be talking about. Yeah. It's about making it more of a level playing field across all the teams.
Yeah,
I'm not saying let's stop, presenting across the globe, stop that kind of global growth for all the clubs and all that, but let's try and get more of it for the other clubs, kind of thing. We want to try and level the playing field. We want to make it so all the clubs have a chance of getting into the top places, and it's refreshing to see the Bournemouths, the Forests. Last season we had Villa, they got into the Champions League this season, obviously, so it's always nice to see that. It freshens things up, doesn't it?
It does.
Maybe to Dan's detriment for your Man United, but at the same time for everyone else it's quite nice to have that variety of teams.
Yeah, and I think it's also something that Man United, for example, they have a global outreach, so much so that they've got loads of money coming in. But in the Big Six, you even have teams like Man City that don't even need a global outreach. They don't even need to have the fans, and somehow they've got all this money.
It's strange where that money comes from, isn't it?
That's crazy. I'm sure it's all legitimate.
Someone should investigate that.
Yeah.
Well, saying that, even Nottingham Forest, I know we're slightly digressing a little bit, but Nottingham Forest, they literally were found guilty of cheating because they overspent, right? Buying all those 20-something players in one window, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Overspent what they should have done, and now they're benefiting the rewards. They took season, they took the hit of however many points. Was it 6-point deduction?
I think they got 4.
Or was it 4 in the end?
Yeah.
And this season, they're like, well, in the longer run, is it worth it? And now they're in the Champions League place at the time of recording.
Yeah.
So they're almost like it's worth cheating for, isn't it?
Well, to be fair to them, they got the points deduction, so they had their penalty. It's not like these other cases that we shan't mention that are still yet to have some kind of repercussions. They took they had their repercussions, and they managed to. I mean, they could have got relegated last season, but they didn't. They managed to stay up, and it's the fact that they managed to stay up that has paid the reward now, I think. If you see what I mean? It's a combination of the maybe creative finances, but also the sort of work rate from a footballing perspective to keep them up, because they could quite easily have got relegated last season despite all of the spending.
They were very close to it, yeah. But the problem is, the PSR rules coming in, I feel, well, a lot of people feel it's kind of shut the doors on the Big Six money. It keeps the rich, and the rest of us have to just pick up whatever meagerly remains are left.
Well, you say that, but PSR has really hurt us. But that's only because of how
poorly
run we are.
Been run. 2 episodes ago, you guys had that debate, didn't you?
Yeah, obviously we've been through all of this before, but I think I mentioned to you guys recently is we've paid, since the Glazers took over £900 million just in interest payments.
Yeah,
and those
insane.
those interest payments come out of your PSR. So I think last season it was just over 60 million. So that's 60 million that we were not able to spend in a transfer window because of debt repayments. So
it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't matter what our revenue streams are or whatever. Those debt repayments are really affecting our PSR thing. And now we're looking to sell Garnacho now, which is just insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry,
But we've
already established that we're rubbish. So
yeah,
I'll carry
you're
on.
one of us now. You're at the bottom of the table. You're basically on the, the third class deck, aren't you, in the Titanic with me?
Yeah.
God, it's always gone on like
100%.
United, isn't it?
So I do apologise. I'll stop. I do apologise.
Back to Arsenal.
Yeah, exactly. So back to the top class clubs. Right. Anyway, so
yes, let's put that violin away.
We're talking about problems with the Prem, and United are kind of the makers of their own misfortune. But in terms of what this elitist kind of side of things we're talking about is those top sides, right? So we looked up some of the spending of the top clubs in the last sort of transfer windows, and we sort of did a sample across the league, right?
I think it was the summer transfer window.
So summer transfer window. So City only spent 25 million in the summer, but they did just spend 150 million in January. So it depends how you look at that. It's actually quite a low amount for them in a sense, isn't it?
Yeah.
So Brentford are in the 80-something million pounds side of things. Liverpool, top of the league at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
42 million pounds they spent in the summer. Arsenal were 108 million. We've got Man United.
Typical, just overspending, as always.
Oh yeah, overspending.
Oh.
Until I mentioned Man United, 214. That's million euros. So in terms of pounds, we're like pushing 200 million.
Yeah.
A little bit less, but generally that sort of amount. So gives you the scale of the difference between some of the clubs. Like we talk about the likes of Brentford, and we talk even Liverpool, even to somebody, and they're in the big six. But this kind of, I think that's out of control in the Premier League. The amount of spending these clubs are putting out there. I think that's one issue with the Premier League. The amount of money that the Premier League clubs you need to spend to be in it, basically, and I feel it's kind of moving football away from its kind of its roots in a sense. It's just the Premier League's great in a sense that it's brought loads more investment in, and it's made the quality of the infrastructure of football in this country, it's helped that in some ways. Although there are big cases, some people argue that it's not helped the kind of pyramid of football.
Yeah,
not enough money gets reinvested elsewhere, but for the top of the table, the standard of football we're watching is, it's fantastic, generally speaking. However, I feel it's pushed fans away. I don't know what you guys feel about this. I feel there's now a bigger divide than ever between football in this country and fans.
I think so. I think I've mentioned before about, because of the whole idea of the global outreach, you've got half the teams being American owners, and the Americans, the way they have their sport is that it is meant to be a more global reach. It's more meant to be international. It's meant to be watched on TV, really. Yeah. They couldn't care less, probably, that people go and actually watch the game in the stadium. They would much rather, they want the money. The money is, it's all about the economy and the money for them. That guy in TalkSport who was, I think it was a former American football player or something, and he was saying that American football, well, the Super Bowl, is now the best sporting event because of the money it brings in. Not about how many people watch it or who likes it, how many teams internationally are involved, nothing like that.
So it's the
just
value
about the money.
In money, the value in money rather than the quality or the entertainment value and that kind of thing.
And that's why Saudis, the Americans, they're all coming in as owners of the Premier League, the teams, and so it's gone from these like local community teams into global commercial teams. And
I think what proves you're right there is there's the Super League. So a few years ago, obviously, we had this Super League debacle, and they still believe that it's kind of in the works. They're still working away at it to come up with a new pitch for it, aren't they? The fans rebelled against it because it was trying to take it away and put football on a more kind of global scale away from its kind of roots in a sense. And there's so many features to it in terms of how it took it away from fans. It didn't make it sort of fair competition. It didn't mean that it wasn't thinking about the fans in local areas. It was more about just the big blockbuster games, wasn't it? That was all it was trying to manufacture all the time. And the importance of the fans sort of shone through because of all the... So the top six owners were kind of like selected and opted into this Super League project, didn't they? And then all the fans of those top six clubs were kind of protesting in the streets, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of fans all in the streets. How much of it only lasted for a few days, didn't it, the whole Super League kind of pitch, but it kind of showed that what they're trying to do is they're not considering the fans are not at the heart of these clubs anymore. And as an Arsenal fan, I've talked about this on a previous episode, it is kind of a bit heartbreaking because I still love my club, but I do feel it's not as innocent as it used to be. I do feel I'm not as in touch with it. I don't feel that it cares about me as much. I'm going to cry in a minute.
That's what I was saying to you, wasn't it? That when it comes to the clubs now, they couldn't care less if you are involved or not. They'll think, that's fine. There'll be another James in another part of the world.
Yeah.
They really don't care. Whereas there used to be a community feel. There really used to be this idea of, no, we want you here. Come along with us.
Yeah. One other issue I have as well. So I've just been crying. So my voice is a bit wobbly.
Yeah.
One other issue I have, the salaries, right? And there's not just from the kind of the principle of it, you think the salaries they're earning. So
how much we're paying Dan? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. How much Dan's earning.
I know.
So I've got here the top 9 earners in the Prem. So in terms of players, right?
Yeah.
Any guesses on who's going to be in that list?
De Bruyne, Haaland.
Yep. Top 2, those 2.
Let's see. Casemiro?
Yeah, you got Casemiro in there, Dan. Rashford's in there, yep.
Oh, wow.
Bruno?
And Bruno. Those are the only three United players in the top
only
9.
3.
Wow.
We've got... So there's a Liverpool player in there.
Salah.
Yep, Salah's in there. 3rd place. Kai Havertz is the only Arsenal player in there. He's
Kai
9th.
Havertz?
I know, he's 9th of that list.
Wow.
He's your highest paid player.
Apparently, yeah. So 270k a week, Kai Havertz is. Then Bernardo Silva, Bruno Fernandes, Jack Grealish, and Marcus Rashford are all joint on 300 grand a week. This is per week, 300 grand.
Yeah.
350 grand a week is Casemiro and Mo Salah. And then De Bruyne is on 400,000 a week, and Erling Haaland's on his new contract recently, 9.5 years or whatever it is, 525k a week.
525.
Yeah.
Wow.
Although a couple of all of those are in euros, apart from Kai Havertz and Bernardo Silva. But it still gives you the impression about the amount of money.
Yeah.
So there's the principal argument, right? Dan, you right?
Can we just have a minute? I just need a minute to get over the fact that Casemiro is paid the same amount of money as Mo Salah. That is
mental.
Unbelievable.
350,000 euros per week. Yeah.
That is money down the drain, boys.
Terrible decision we made. That is awful, isn't it?
Imagine being Bukayo Saka thinking, why am I doing this? What am I doing this for? When Kai Havertz can miss an open goal and then go home with more. He probably earns double what Saka's on.
Actually, Saka recently had a new contract where it's in the middle of being negotiated, actually, where it's going to be pushed up to not quite that amount, but I think somewhere around the 200.
Still not going to be paid
but
as
it's
much
not going to be that amount, no. And that's often the case for the kind of homegrown players, isn't it? They don't get the same. So that's another issue. But what I want to mention is not just how crazy those numbers are, but how it makes it... So what's it going to do, right? It's going to attract players from across the world to the Premier League, which you might say, it's brilliant for the quality of the Premier League. We're getting all these kind of quality players coming in, right? Mm-hmm. The issue I have is they're coming for the wrong reasons. I think if you want to play in this country and you want to play for the badge, it doesn't matter how much you're earning. That you could be on a tenth of that and still have a good earnings for your whole life kind of thing, you know?
I'd even argue that increase in the salary has reduced a lot of players' performances and reduced the entertainment value rather than increased it.
Maybe.
Quite possibly.
There's been plenty of occasions when players have just signed new contracts. I can think at Arsenal, for example, Aubameyang and Ozil, when we tried to keep them at the club and we gave them huge salary packs, 250,000 a week, or whatever it was.
Yeah. Performances
dropped.
And Marcus Rashford.
Yeah, well, exactly.
At the risk of getting Dan riled up again.
Don't mention that name. So therefore, I feel all those reasons the Premier League has lost its soul. With all that money, I feel it's lost its soul. I'm not sure the Premier League is the best league in the world anymore.
Well, I kind of see where you're getting at, but okay, say it's not the best league in the world anymore.
It's not the best league in the world anymore.
So if it's not the best league in the world anymore, then which league is?
The second league of the Bundesliga.
Huh?
The second league of the Bundesliga.
The second, correct. The second Bundesliga league.
Yeah.
Not
Bundesliga
the first
2,
one,
let's call it.
The second one.
The second one. Yeah. This will blow your mind, guys. I think that the second Bundesliga 2, is the most interesting in terms of like competitiveness, in terms of the way it's run, the fan base, everything. I think this is actually the kind of thing that we want the Premier League to be.
Are you secretly German?
9.
Oh, okay. That was convincing.
Yeah. No, so I've looked at the Premier League and the Championship, and then I compared it to the Bundesliga and the second Bundesliga.
Right.
So I was looking at each of the leagues within 3 points from the top, within 6 points from the top, and within 9 points from the top. And in the English league, within 3 points from the top, there's only 1, Liverpool. Within 6 points from the top, there's only 2, Liverpool and Arsenal. And within 9 points from the top, there's only 3. So 3 teams separated by 9 points. If we look at the Bundesliga 2, the second league, within 3 points from the top, there's 7 teams. 7 teams within 3 points of each other. So one week, you might be 7th. And if you win a game, you might be top.
If results go your way.
Yeah. Within 6 points of each other, that's 9. 9 teams within 6 points of each other. Within 9 points of each other, there's 13 teams.
Whoa.
Wow.
13 teams.
But isn't the Championship a bit like that, in a sense? I'm sure if you win a game in the Championship, you can jump up like half the league.
Yeah, you would hope that. So I looked at the Championship. Within 3 points of each other, there's 3 teams.
Okay.
Within 6 points of each other, there's 4 teams. And within 9 points of each other, there's 4 teams. The top 4 are so far ahead. I think there's like an 11-point gap between 4th and 5th.
Right.
So it's competitive in a sense of those 4 teams.
Yeah.
But the league itself is a big difference.
There's still that divide, isn't it, like you say?
If you look at the actual clubs that are in there, out of the 24 teams, I think there's only about 4 teams that haven't been in the Prem. The rest have. But only one of them has actually made a significant impact in the Prem, Blackburn.
Oh, yeah.
When they won in 95 or whatever. So that's still 30 years ago. And
but they haven't had any impact since they went down, did they? Because obviously Blackburn, at that stage, they were a top-tier team and had been for a long time. But since being relegated, they've never seen anything like the same height.
Exactly. Yeah, and the other 19-odd teams that have been in the Prem are now in the Championship. They're kind of like, Leicester, the Wolves kind of teams where they're towards the bottom. They will come down, might yo-yo every now and again. But
clubs.
Whereas in the Bundesliga 2, there's actually more former German champions in Bundesliga 2 than there is currently in Bundesliga 1.
Wow.
And the way that they're structured is pretty much so that to be relegated is a bad thing, but it's not the be-all and end-all like it is.
Kind of thing.
The Prem and Championship are so different now. You look at the last few years, the 3 teams to go up will go straight back down.
Almost straight, relegated straight away.
Whereas in the Bundesliga, even if you're in the second league, the attendance, the fan base, everything is still there. It's massive. And I'm going to throw a few stats for you guys. This is about attendance, and I think this kind of relates to the soul that we were talking about. If you look at the highest, the average attendance in the Championship and Bundesliga, all of last season, the Championship averaged about 23,000 for the whole year. The second Bundesliga, 29,000, quite a bit higher.
Surprising, actually.
Yeah. Schalke, who surprisingly are in the second division, even though they're a big team.
I remember them in the Champions League.
They did, 2002.
I remember them in Europe.
Yeah. So they're in the second league, and they average 61,000 in attendance. That is...
Wow.
And compared to the Premier League, that would have been the third highest in the Prem.
Yeah.
Only West Ham and United had a higher average attendance.
That's bigger than the Arsenal Stadium capacity. I think it was about 60,500 or something.
Yeah, and that's their attendance in the second division of the Bundesliga.
That's impressive.
Comparing that, Sunderland last season had the highest attendance at 41,000, so 20,000 lower. And if you compare that to the Bundesliga, then they would have been 9th.
Wow.
9th highest.
Wow.
Seriously?
Yeah.
I did not have thought that, actually.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They've got such huge teams, and because they were former champions, they were historically big teams and everything, they bring that fan base with them. It stays with them. They've got the big stadiums, and the prices that we looked at. Do you remember the price of football?
Yeah. Price of tickets and things. Yeah.
Paul Scholes recently was talking about how his team, Salford, they had reasonable prices for their season tickets at about 210 or something for a season. They're in the 4th league of the English leagues. They're in League 2, aren't they?
Wow.
And their season tickets are higher than Bayern Munich.
Wow.
And yet supposedly it's reasonable.
Wow.
That's reasonable. That shows how relatively across the UK football that's if that's reasonable.
How is that sustainable though? How did Bayern Munich have such cheap season tickets and can still pay their wage bill?
That's a very good question, Dan. I'm glad you asked. So they have something called the 50+1 rule. Now, the 50+1 rule it's a brilliant rule where it basically means that fan ownership will always be the majority over any outside private investment.
Oh, you mean sort of in terms of decision making, for example, the fans have a big say and influence.
It's a share ownership essentially.
Right, okay.
So if you look at the Premier League, almost all of it is American, Saudi owners. They might be tyrannical nation states, and yet you've got no choice in how your team, your club, is ruled.
Yeah, and as we've said, the kind of sense that fans aren't really that important. No. Really, we're just we're cash cows in a sense. We're just there to kind of give them the money.
Yeah,
they want to keep us on side to keep us, investing in the club in that sense. But
from a financial perspective, what you're saying is there is literally zero need for them to put the prices of these tickets up. They could afford to run season tickets at the same price as Bayern Munich do.
Effectively, yes, because what their aim is not like in the Premier League to make more and more money. Because in the Premier League, there's no ceiling, is there? They want to keep going and going. With last season's record-breaking isn't enough. We need to get more now. Yeah. We need to charge more. In the Bundesliga, they really don't mind that they are not the biggest league in the world or the richest or anything. They don't look at the Premier League with envy. They don't look at Man City or Man United or something with envy whenever they spend hundreds of millions. They see it as basically the antithesis to their soul, their culture of football. If you give their Premier League or if you give their clubs to these nation states or these business people that don't care about football, they care far more that it's for the people. And so because they have 50+1 rule, they can say no basically to these huge price rises, and it'll state for the people. And I think that's a great idea.
Straight away though, you're going to get more fan sort of buy-in if you involve them in decisions. So that's how it should be. The fans being involved in the decision making. At least they feel like they're important to their club, which is what you were saying earlier. For Arsenal, as much as I love the club, it feels like it's moved gradually more and more away from that they actually care and about my opinions and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because Dusseldorf, they were one of the top teams in the Bundesliga 2 last year. They this season they've allowed 4 games to play for free, so they didn't charge any of the tickets. And the city council kind of got involved, and some of the trains and the public transport was free as well to try and encourage spending. And they made more money in those 4 games than they did when they charged tickets, because people were spending money for drinks, for food. They were being more social in the city itself. People were kind of encouraged to go out and see friends, go shopping,
socialise and that.
Yeah. And so it actually impacts the community in ways that we really wanted to. Ages ago, when we had that episode with Coops, we were talking about how
more
clubs,
community kind of.
Clubs should have a community impact, don't they? And in Germany, they absolutely do.
Yeah,
they have
should
a real
be a
impact.
feature of community in the sense that, and that's the case in this country as well, in terms of how it should be. Football is such a kind of cultural heritage. It's part of the national culture, isn't it? Is what I'm trying to say. So football is so important. As the fan rebellion against the Super League showed, it's part of our DNA, Yeah. And I feel like the clubs are forgetting this, so it's such a good comparison to make. I am impressed with your German knowledge there.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah.
Done your research.
This is again because of our contact with our man from the other side, Philip.
Oh, Philip. Hello. Right. Other than last season, so what was it? Leverkusen won the league, right?
Yeah.
That was an anomaly because it was last 10, 11 seasons before that. Bayern Munich have been winning the league, and they're back top again.
Yeah.
It's so it can't be. I mean, involving fans is great, but there's still a bit of a closed shop in that sense, isn't there? The top sides, even Dortmund, and they're one of those kind of top sides that seem to always be up there. It seems like it's still not reachable for some of the other clubs in Germany.
Yeah, there's definitely...
Don't forget Harry Kane is still there, and he's not going to win a trophy, so I'm sure that'll change by the end of the season.
That's true. He's doing his best to ruin Bayern Munich's reputation.
he's done very well to level the playing field there. Let's give him his due.
Single-handedly, yeah. Well, it is true because the 50+1 rules kind of shut the door on the rich versus the rest in the same way that PSR has done in the Prem. Between the two, I would always think that the 50+1 is the better, lesser of the evils, just because
more fan involvement.
Yeah,
and things.
It's a fan ownership almost. And since then, I think it was 1998 that the 50+1 came in, and since then, I think Bayern Munich won like 19 of 26 or something. So it absolutely has shut the door. In the same way that in the Prem, you can't imagine anyone other than the Big Six, one of the Big Six, to win it. Kind of not really Big Six anymore. Is it Big Four maybe? Anyway,
the Big Four with Spurs and United.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So
I would definitely say that that is a problem. If we want to implement 50+1 in the Prem, I would say that's not necessarily a fix to try and open up the rich versus poor. This is more a way to try
bring the soul back.
Exactly, it's a way to bring the soul back.
Yeah. It's to reconnect with the fans, which is half the issue, isn't it? Like the money is taking it away from the fans, and this would make it more, like you say, community based, and that's really the main part of football.
There's the problems, guys. Let's get into the fixes then, shall we? Right. So we need to organise these fixes then, because we talked about a lot there. So we've got problems with the kind of the spending of the Premier League clubs, especially as we go up and up the ladder.
Yeah.
We've got an issue with the kind of fan relations, the kind of relationship, the soul we talked about, and how the Premier League's moving away from its kind of its roots in that sense.
Yeah.
Or moving the clubs away, I should say, from their roots.
Yeah.
And really that whole rich-poor kind of divide is kind of like the closed shop idea, isn't it? So it all kind of interlinks, but at the same time it just feels more and more like it's less relatable. Less
relatable, eh?
It makes it so it's less and less relatable.
Than more.
More.
I get you.
So, so in terms of fixes, so the German model also has flaws. So we want to take what from our lessons from our German cousins?
Well, I would say in terms of they've got it right in terms of the soul. I think the soul of the culture of football there is exactly what we want.
More relatable.
Much more relatable.
Yeah.
So it's the fan ownership, I think, is a big thing. So they can basically curb the idea of these American business people or tyrannical nations or whatever you want to call them taking over and then making decisions for your team. So basically, they're coming in, taking your teams, and now mine actually, because we're American owned, and they'll make these decisions that'll take them basically away from yourselves and say, don't really care about you. The UK doesn't actually have a massive population. We're going to go to America or Asia or something. We're going to make it massive there.
There's more revenue streams over there.
All the pre-seasons are now going over there, and they're talking about, in Spain at the moment, they're talking about that one extra game, or I think it's one of the 38 games they're going to play in America or something as a home game.
What?
It's just, completely taking the football away from your culture. Whereas if you have 50+1, none of that would happen. You guys would actually have a voice, because I'm sure, James especially, I'm sure you'd be involved. You'd want to have a share, wouldn't you? You'd get
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you'd be able to have a say in a way that no Premier League teams are able to.
Yeah, I completely agree. That would definitely help me feel the clubs are there to represent the fans. That's what they are. They're from the communities. They're part of our culture, and it makes us feel that we're still important. So I completely agree with that. Yeah, I think that would help to convince me that the soul still is there, that they still care about the fans, because at the moment that feels non-existent.
And it does mean it kind of curbs the English Prem's, view of themselves in a sense, because I mentioned earlier, the Germans really don't care that they're the best league or whatever. That's not necessarily what they care about. They care about competitiveness. They care about their teams. That's the way they're run, the way that it's so much easier and cheaper for them to attend. Whereas in England, there's this cultural idea that we have to be the best league. We're the best league in the world. We're better than Spain. We got a big six. We haven't. It's not a big two.
That is that American approach.
It's
isn't it?
really American approach. There's none of that makes sense for your everyday love of the game. Who cares that we are stronger than Spain, for example? Because when we're watching the Premier League, we don't go, oh, yeah, I love being better than the La Liga.
Yeah, I love that we've made more revenue than them.
Yeah, exactly.
What's that got to do with the football on the field?
Do you know what might help? Do you know what might help with that, though, actually? There's been more and more English players like exported out into other leagues, isn't there? Like, look at Bellingham and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think that might actually help break that divide a bit. Because I think there's also an element of this pride of Britain thing, like you saying, in terms of we've got the best league in the world. I think the reason we hold on to that is because, like, we are so poor on an international competitive level. Like, if our team was, like, had won something, if you see what I mean, then we would maybe not feel the need to then label our league the best in the world. Because we want to, like, we kind of almost want to hold on to something, right? Because, you know, the FA is the oldest running. Is it the FA the first
Football Association?
Yeah,
Football League, International Football Association. Yeah. So because we were the first, we always want to feel like, you know, we're the best in some way.
Because we created the game.
Yeah, exactly, and that actually goes back to the entitlement thing, really, doesn't it? Like, there's actually more entitlement in the Premier League and with these English fans. You know, we spoke about the entitlement of, like, the big teams, but I think there is an entitlement from English fans with English football, which exists as well. So that needs to be addressed and fixed before we can really fix it and move on.
That's actually culturally throughout. That includes the media as well. I remember there was a 100%. German player, I can't remember who it was, maybe it was Thomas Müller, that said that in Germany, they don't care about individualism. That's why you don't have superstars in Germany. Even when they won the World Cup in 2014, he was saying there's no one superstar.
It was the team.
It was a team.
Yeah.
Whereas in England, we are obsessed with finding the superstar.
The individual.
This time round, it was Bellingham.
Yeah.
He's going to win it for us. He's going to do it. We had Gascoigne before. We had Beckham, Rooney. We have these players that we need to fit them in as the superstar that will win us the trophy. Yeah. And all of that is based on the media, what we actually talk about as well. Everyone, because of the media and everything, because of the culture that we have superstars, we kind of like put them on a pedestal in a way that Germany kind of doesn't. Even Spain said the same as well, that they're a team. They see themselves as a team. They don't have standouts.
I think that's a really interesting point. Yeah, true.
I think what needs to happen is, so that we become less obnoxious and the whole world finds us a little bit less annoying, I think at the next World Cup, I think all teams need to just lay down and allow England to just win a World Cup, get it out of their systems, and then we'd be a little bit more bearable to the rest of the world.
Yeah, but I think we've become the Harry Kane of international teams now, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. That's very true.
Yeah, we're this, like, supposedly such a big team internationally that just can't win a game. So I think, like, to the point that now I think with Kane, it sounds harsh, but I don't want him to win a trophy because it's gotten to a point now where it's quite funny.
It is funny. I find it funny for a
To
while.
go to Bayern Munich, who won 11 years in a row, and then all of a sudden they go on a trophy drought the first season they're there. Yeah. So Kingsley Coman, he was in Bayern Munich. He'd won every single year he's been a professional. He'd won a league trophy up until he played with Kane. I mean, it was a matter of,
that
like,
is fantastic.
Yeah, which gift or curse is strongest, and it turns out the curse is strongest.
It's the unstoppable force and movable object kind of dilemma, isn't it?
My favourite twist on that Harry Kane thing is the fact that the only trophy he won was the Bundesliga Golden Boot, which is essentially an Arsenal cannon.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
Oh, yes, just fantastic.
Right, we are fixing the Premier League, chaps. Just throw that back out there. So I have a fix around. So a couple of fixes around financial side of things. So we said the kind of the spending of the top clubs, the Premier League clubs in general, even down to Southampton.
Yeah.
You know, spending that amount of money. I think that the fact it's an open market, I think it makes it more businessy, more commercial, because that's what we want, the free market, the open market in the business world, right? It moves it away from sport, especially now we've got the scale and size of these investors, the owners, these states, American owns and the Saudi states and things like that.
Yeah.
It leaves it open for just ridiculous amounts of money, no matter you have PSR rules and things. So I think there should be a cap on actual spending. So I'm looking at the range of the spending totals that we were talking about earlier. And if you say, for example, 150 million for Prem, that's, I'm trying to go for like an average in between. So you've got some clubs spending 200 million. You've got clubs near the bottom who, other than Southampton, actually spent over 100 million last year. But a lot of those clubs were kind of less than that, So maybe it's sort of, if you say, and that could be movable, but it's the same for everybody. So at least it's a level playing field. So the clubs up and down the league can only spend up to a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
Say, for example, 150 million. So I know that they're looking at bringing in the salary cap for wages, right? So for salaries and wages. And I think it's meant to be an average is what they've kind of explored based on the lowest spending team. So therefore, up and down the league, everyone will have a cap on the salaries. So that will stop some of those ridiculous salaries that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm thinking the spending cap on actual transfer fees as well. So it's not based on your net income solely, although I feel that should still be a factor. But actually, clubs can't just go and spend 200 million here. And so, because then suddenly, how's Ipswich meant to compete with that?
Yeah.
And they're going to get relegated straight away. So it goes back down to the Championship, and the problem kind of elongates. It goes back down to there. So, and what we were saying earlier about the gap between the Championship and the Premier League, that's only going to get stronger and stronger if we don't cap how much the Premier League clubs can spend.
Yeah.
So, long-winded, but my fix
Very long-winded.
is a spending cap.
Ah, okay. Well, I've got one. There's two forms of finance to look at, isn't there? There's the salary, and then there's the transfer spending.
Yeah.
And I feel like there should be some sort of pyramid level where the higher you were the previous season, the less you can spend on transfers. And so, say, for example, if you finish first, well done, you'll get, prize money. I think they get a lot more than the rest. But then they'll be limited at, say, 50 mil. And then every place down you go, you can spend an extra 5 mil or something like that, going all the way down. So if you're second, you can spend 55. Third, you can spend 60, and so on and so forth. However, there could be technically, a certain salary cap, but a very high one, so that if you finish top and you make loads of money, but you can only spend 50 mil, then the rest of the money you've saved in your profits could go towards the salaries.
Oh, okay.
And it'll mean that the lower you are, the more you can spend. However, because of PSR or because of the 50 plus one, whichever way we want to do it, they can't necessarily just go, well, we're at the bottom, we can spend the most, so we'll spend 500 million.
Yeah,
we haven't got 500
money at it.
Yeah. You've still got to be following the PSR rules of spending what you have. But I think something like that, it's something similar to what Formula One do, I think, where the higher the constructors team is, the less time you can spend in the wind tunnels for research and development for the following year.
Next car and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So it basically
it's similar to a lot of American sports, isn't it, where they have the draft. So the teams that finished bottom get first pick in the draft, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it basically means that, because otherwise you just have the top teams, well done, you get more money, you get put into the better European leagues, you get more money there, and then the lower teams, you get less money, you don't get put into those European competitions, because most of the teams, let's face it, they want to enter Europe, not to win it, but to get the money, because they know they can't necessarily win, but they can go far enough to make a lot of money from it.
Yeah.
So I feel like if there's a way so that you can kind of flip the pyramid so that you have an actual cap, and every level you go down, every league level you go down, you can actually spend more.
Right. So it's almost like the higher you go, the more diminishing the returns are, in a sense. In that, which I like it. The only question I'd have with that is how we manage it in terms of our European competitiveness. So when we go into those European competitions, the Real Madrids and Barcelonas might not be disadvantaged in that way. So our clubs won't be able to spend as much right now.
I think that's a good thing. I think that's a very good thing, because if you look right now, Real Madrid and Barcelona and stuff, we don't even have to compete with them. We're not in the same league with them, and yet they're capitulating to the point that Barcelona can't even afford the players they've got.
True.
Juventus have had to sell all of their best players.
Very good point.
Yeah, many of the best teams. Shut up, Dan. All of the best teams in Europe are basically having to sell all of their players. Do you remember? I think it was last summer, maybe the one before. All of the Italian teams put together spent less than one of our Premier League teams in a summer transfer window.
Like that. Yeah.
And so we don't even have to do anything. Like, even without all of our fixes or anything, they are overspending to the point that they are basically having to sell everything.
Yeah, Barcelona have had to sell rights to their
literally
TV or whatever.
To sell 25% of Barcelona basically to keep going.
Well,
sorry, Dan, carry on.
That's all right. No, just as a side point, like I do think less investment, like with a spending cap, actually less investment and things in sort of overspending on transfers. You'll see more investment in academies, and then. Also, if we're fixing this whole thing with the engagement with the fans, if the clubs are more engaged with the fans, you're going to get more interest in and passion again for football that's kind of becoming depleted. Like, look at Marcus Rashford is an excellent example. I know I've gone about it.
Here we go. Typical.
I'm sorry, but. You know, he came through Man United's academy, but there's no way he cares anything like as much as the academy of the class of '92. Like their passion for the club is something that won't really be matched with our current academy, because the club doesn't have the same connection with its community. So as a result, the players that come through that club and the academy aren't going to care as much. So if we can fix. So if we fix the community thing at the same time as cutting the spend, we could actually end up producing a better degree or a better talent pool through our academies. And we'd probably see an increase in the English game as well.
Exactly. It's making the clubs have to think outside the box. So instead of thinking we'll become better by spending more, they'll think, let's invest in our youth, in the academies. Let's rely more. Let's give the reserves a chance. You know, there's so many. Yeah. You remember with Mourinho, he never really gave the youth a chance. And there's so many top teams top managers, they wouldn't give youth a chance at all.
That's such a good point. Having your building on what Dan was just saying there, those young players, when they do come through, the fans relate to them and buy into. I know that's how Dan's had his Man United moment. For Arsenal, Mikel Arteta getting, the likes of Saka, Emile Smith-Rowe, those players coming through, the fans loved it, and it kind of helped to sell the project, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, because Arsenal fans loved it when Emile Smith-Rowe was sold. Yeah,
I was going to say,
it was very hurtful.
Helped to sell Smith-Rowe too.
Across the fan channels and stuff, there was a consensus that we were quite upset, and I saw loads of comments. Oh, Fulham, please look after him. That kind of stuff. That's the thing. It was
Arteta out. That's
the
what
thing.
It
was a club decision, not a fan decision. Hence what we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. Yeah.
So from the fans, I don't think if we all voted, we probably wouldn't have sold him. So and Saka, we call him the star boy. If we sell him, there'll be uproar in the stands. It would just be we won't accept it. Yeah, so I think Dan's absolutely on it. It helps you relate to the team. So in terms of bringing the soul back, as well as having fan involvement, it's bringing those young players through.
Yeah.
Because of all the reasons we just talked about.
I'll be honest, guys, I've got a fix of my own, which I think you'll probably agree with. I think I've solved it.
Right.
Yeah.
This better be a good one. You're building up to be a big one.
This is really built up.
Yeah,
this is everything's gone quiet.
So pause. So basically, my idea is...
Are you feeling the pressure?
So
there are literally dozens of people listening to you right now.
So my idea is, going back to that Schalke point, that really hit a nerve with me. That's really gone in deep. I think we need a sacrificial lamb, and I am quite happy for Manchester United and myself to be that sacrificial lamb and get relegated.
Oh, wow.
Amazing. Oh, wow.
So United, are you saying United need to be relegated?
Yeah, that's the fix. The fix is, let's relegate United. To be honest with you, I'd quite enjoy us to actually win a game. We'd go for a season of actually being able to win games again. So it'd be quite fun for me for a year. And then, you get a big team in the Championship, and then all of a sudden it's an even playing field. Fixes everything.
True. And that might help remove some of the entitlement amongst United fans as well.
That's true, yeah. That's 2 episodes in one there. Yeah, and you can join Man City next season in the Championship.
There you go. I mean, how many fixes can you have with one one idea. I mean, you're welcome, everybody. I'll get on the phone to Sir Jim. I'll recommend it. I'll tell him, not that he needs to be told anyway, but I'll tell him not to spend anything in the window. I don't think he's going to anyway, so it's fine. But just in case he was thinking about it, I'll just tell him, let's not bother with that. In fact, sell Garnacho, sell a few other players, and let's get relegated and have some real fun next season. There you go.
Looking at the way things are going, this might have been in his plans all along since he's overtaken.
Yeah, that's a good point. He's done everything he can.
So now, if it does happen, it was my idea and this was intentional. So
I like it. Yeah, that's a good one.
You see? Yeah. So you're welcome, everyone. When we get relegated, you are most welcome.
Can you take Spurs with you?
No.
Okay. They won't be kicking and screaming.
They're already a bit running. Too much there.
They are literally running to the relegation zone, aren't they?
They are, aren't they? So away we are, mate. That was big Ange.
Oh, I see. Right.
Anyway, I think it's time for some fantasy football tips, lads. Here's my juiceless tips.
Juiceless.
I'm James.
Don't do it.
Right then, chaps. Well, this week I've been looking at my team, right? I've got some brilliant juiceless tips for you. So, last week, I put Palmer in from Chelsea.
Yeah.
He had a shocking game against Man City. Doesn't really seem to have much of an impact, does he?
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah.
I'm tempted to move him back out. Yeah, I had 2 transfers available to me because I didn't do one the previous week. Oh, I forgot. So, what I've done, I've considered that there's actually an Everton and Liverpool double game week coming up.
Yeah. So
I've already got Mikolenko and Pickford, and what I'm thinking this time is getting my Liverpool players back so I can ruin their chances.
Oh, brilliant.
So I've already got Salah, who scored nothing for me recently.
He scored today.
Oh, did he?
Yep.
Oh, excellent. I've got some points. Luis Diaz, I've brought back in for Palmer, and I've taken, what's his name, from Forest?
Wood?
No, not right now, Sess. I'm doing juiceless tips here.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to put Gakpo in, so another Liverpool player. So I've got 3 Liverpool players, 2 Everton, so the double game week. I think they're almost bordering on juicy, What do you guys think?
Well, they would be until you ruin those and ruin Everton's double game week as well. Thanks for that.
Hey, do you want me to swap one of these Liverpool players out and put another Everton one in?
Yeah. Whoa.
Exactly.
Let's not go too far.
We're all friends here.
So those are my juiceless tips, guys. Consider that double game week, and or don't. The choice is yours.
Thanks, James, for those juiceless tips. I'm sure no one will heed your advice.
Let's have a look at the Football is Fixable Alright Fantasy Football League.
Nice.
Oh, what do you know? So somebody called Sam is top.
Oh, no wonder. I might as well just kind of put this on a repeat.
It saved me having to make the effort of calling.
Yeah.
No, well done, Sam. Looking good there at the top. People's Front of Judea in a relatively close second. 49 points currently behind at the time of recording.
Yeah, it's doable.
Our former guru, John, is still in third.
Nice.
Although 4th place has more points than him so far this weekend.
Oh.
So, yeah, and Cunha beat me in 5th place is also quite close. So it is quite close near the top. Yeah. There isn't really a closed shop for the top 5, shall we say. It looks close there.
In the spirit of celebrating the teams towards the bottom, can we just have a shout out as well to, on the Saturday, Mr. Sam Britton, Baines on Toast, who is down in a lowly 34th place. In fact, he's below James. That's how low he is, poor Sam. He is the highest scorer of today. So just a little well done to the man for never giving up on 80 points. So just in the spirit of equality, I thought I'd just shout that man out.
Nice. I like it.
Well done, Sam. There you go. I know Sam. He's a lovely guy as well. But he is a Man City fan, so maybe he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Take it all back.
That'd teach you, wouldn't it? Being nice. If you'd like to join our league, please do by entering the code 8B8E1L, and you can see if you can beat any of us 3 in our Fantasy Football is Fixable Alright podcast. What am I saying?
League.
The league, right.
Yeah. And we'd like to thank our sponsors for tonight's episode, Germany.
Stop that music. Come on, hang on. If you've enjoyed the episode, please do like, subscribe, follow, and all that jazz. Well, it just remains for me to say, it's goodbye from me.
It's an Auf Wiedersehen from me.
And it's goodbye from me.